Start again.
I'm happy that it's not only my equipment that which is not working, so now it's okay?
Yeah, now you
We
can
start,
talk.
okay. Last time we saw that the Yebusi was so sure that no one can conquer the city that they mocked David and they said, you know what? Even the Ivrim, the blind people, and the Pischim are going to protect this city. You cannot come into the city, period. And indeed, everyone who knows Yerushalayim, and it was a smaller area than what you know today, and well protected, if you ever took a tour around the Chomot of Yerushalayim, you can see parts of the wall which is not from the Sultan. You know, the walls today are from the 15th century or the 16th century. You can see few walls. You can see the walls from the time of the Second Temple from the Romans, and you can see the walls from the time of Abraham Avinu, basically. And these are like very thick, well-protected place, and therefore they were sure that no one can get into the city. And therefore they rightfully mocked David that no one will be able to take the city. However, וילכוד דוד את מצודת ציון. We are in Pasuk Zayin. He עיר David. First of all, he takes a very strategic point, מצודת ציון, which is apparently where is Har Tzion today, watching over the city of Yebus. ויאמר דוד ביום ההוא, כל מכה יבוסי, everyone who is going to hit the יבוסי, ויגע בצינור, and he is going to touch the pipe, whatever it is, צינור is pipe in Hebrew, ואת הפסחים ואת העברים, שנואי נפש דוד. And the people who they put there to mock David, that he will not be able to enter the city, על כן יאמרו, עיוור ופיסח לא יבוא אל הבית. And therefore it was like a say, that even by Iver and Piseach, no one will be able to enter the house, which was Yerushalayim. However, David somehow managed to conquer the place. וישב דוד במצודה, ויקרא לעיר דוד, David was sitting in the מצודה, ויקרא לעיר דוד, ויבן דוד סביב מן המילו וביתה. So somehow David managed to go through the tzino apparently, which was a very strategic point, and managed to take over the city. And from there on, Yerushalayim was his. And he called the place עיר דוד. ויבן דוד סביב מן המילו וביתה, and then David actually started to build Yerushalayim. מן המילו, we are going to see what does that mean. How he did it? Well, for generations, people did not understand how David managed indeed to go into the city. To attack Yerushalayim, you needed an army. Later, about 400 years, 360 years after the time of David, 300 years after the time of David, Sancheriv, the general of Assyria, is coming to take over Yerushalayim. He came with an army of 180,000 people. Nothing was left because there was a miracle. This is not the shiur about this one. But he understood that in order to take Yerushalayim, you cannot come with a small army. David at the time did not have such a great army. He had the people of Yehuda, which we can assume were a few thousand people. But you cannot take Yerushalayim with less than like dozens of thousands of people. What is a tzino? What is this pipe? Well, every city depends on one thing. Water. How the people in Yerushalayim got their water? As I say, for generations we didn't know. But today we know very well. in the 19th century, there was a person by the name Warren, who actually was a soldier in the British Army with a very strong sense of history. And he was the first one to start digging into Yerushalayim. All parts of Yerushalayim, and he documented everything he did. And he had a very strong sense that where is Ir David today, which is not exactly the old city, is actually the place where the big things happened. The house of David, the real house of David, the government of David. They were not where today is the old city, the area of Beit HaMikdash, and remember in the time of David HaMelech there was no Beit HaMikdash. He believed strongly, and he was right, that it was where Ir David is today. And why? Because this was the place where they could bring easily the water. Now, when I say easily, you have to understand how Yerushalayim is built. We have hills. In the top of the hills, there are no water. Down the rivers, all the waters arrive and you get some springs. One of them is the spring of Gihon, or the Nikbat HaShiloach. I'm sure that if you visited Yerushalayim, you saw it. Nikbat HaShiloach was built 150 years after David HaMelech. But the water to Yerushalayim were always brought from the only spring around, which was Ma'ayan HaGihon. Today is where the Silwan village is sitting. How did they get there? Remember, if there was a gate to Yerushalayim, they would go into it. People will be able to get into the city. How people can bring water to the city from a spring in the river? This was a great mystery. Where did they get the water from?
Wasn't an aqueduct built?
They did not have aqueduct. And again, this will be a weak spot because you have to level the water in a way that will give you some entrance into the city. What they found was, and Warren was the first one to realize it, that the people in Yerushalayim who lived at this height and the spring was here, they did something very interesting. They built a tunnel here and they built a pipe here which they took, they had ladders to go into the source of water. They managed to make like a place where the water could come inside the walls. They draw the water and brought them back into the city. It was maybe tiring, it maybe was not the most convenient thing, obviously not like running water of today, but they had enough water, number one. Number two, it was very safe. They never had to leave the city. And David sensed that the water is the answer to how to take Yerushalayim. And therefore he said, the person who will manage to get into this pipe and to get into Yerushalayim when the Yevusi cannot expect anybody to go. Now when we talk about this hole in the ground or this pipe, we are talking about a vertical pipe, basically, that only by 2 ladders you can go down. And what you will need to do is just to take the ladder. No one can climb the walls. They were steep and you know what, in a way, the Yevusi apparently did not believe that anyone knows how the system is working. In Sefer Divrei Hayamim we know that Yoav actually was the one who got into the pipe. He found where the source of the water is, and from there he climbed into the pipe, and 2 people enter Yerushalayim and open the gates from the inside to the outside. the most unexpected thing, the most unbelievable operation. Only 3 people who found this spot that was spot of weakness. And they managed to open the gates to the people of David, and the moment David could come with his people into the city, there was no city anymore. And in a way, this way to take over, yes?
I said, explain to me how the water got off the pipe.
The water did not, they drew the water.
They carried the water up?
They carried the water up. But
Yeah,
listen,
okay.
this was like young people, and you know, this was the balance between protecting the city and supplying water. So this was a perfect way. By the way, you can see that today, if you go to Ir David, there is a place that is called Pier Warren, the Warren Shaft, that you can see in the middle of the building, there is an opening, and you can see the shaft going down 12 meters. And they trusted this shaft that no one will be able to climb it. They found the way to climb it. How they did it? Maybe they brought their own sulamot ladders. As I said, in Divrei Yamim it said that Yoav managed to find, you know how the mountain climbers are doing it. They know to catch every piece of rock and to climb up. They managed to do it. This was a sayeret. You know, the sayeret, even today in Tzahal, it's few people who know the technique how to get into a very difficult place. They open the gate, and as I say, David enters the city. Now, we have to understand this was the way that David operated. If you remember the story about the bear and the lion, David found the weak spot. The weak spot was actually the beard of the Aryeh and the bear. When everyone will be afraid to go around the mouth of the bear or the lion, he found that there is a weak spot over there, and if you take the beard and pull it strongly, then you can actually overcome the bear and the lion. The same he did with Goliath. He actually used the power of Goliath against him, because he could not move quickly, and therefore the rock that he threw had much more power, and after that the helem, the amazement, the astonishment of Goliath, he just had to run quickly and to stab him with a cherem, and it was over. And David was a strategist like this. He liked the war of a guerrilla war. And he understood that the only way to get into Yerushalayim will be in an unusual way, not in a way of a direct war, but something smart. And he found the way to do it. So this was the Yigabat Tzino. This Tzino today, we know where is this Tzino. It's in Ir David, it's a Warren Shaft, basically. וילך דוד הלוך וגדול, והשם אלוקי צבאות עמו. The moment he got into Yerushalayim, David started the process of being recognized that God is with him. We are going to see this perek is going to talk about what does it mean to become a great king. How he established his kingdom in Judea and over Israel, which was not his natural tribes and people. Number one, וישלח חירם מלך צור מלאכים אל דוד. The king of Tzor, Hiram, we don't know why, but he apparently recognized something very special about David and the new king of Israel. He sent to him Atzei Arazim. If you were in Lebanon, and I'm not sure that you were, but I was in Lebanon, the beautiful cedars, fantastic, huge. V'charashei etz, people who are expert in woodcraft. V'charashei even kir, the expert of stones and how to cut them properly. Vayivnu bayit leDavid, and they are building a house to David. They had the expertise, They had the resources, as I said, wood was a great resource in Lebanon, Arzea, Lebanon. Later on, we are going to see them in Melachim Aleph when this Hiram is helping Shlomo to build later Beit HaMikdash. But for some reason, the most important thing that we see here was diplomacy. There is a connection built between David, the king of Israel, and America of this time, which was Tzor. Tzor was the most important port in the Middle East, at least in the eastern part of the Mediterranean. We know that the Phoenix, they had like a very strong trade of glass that was found or developed at this time. It was a very, very important port. This was the international city. The Nevi'im, like Yechezkel, Yeshayahu, they are talking about Tzor, Tyre, which was the center of the modern world at the time. And the first thing that David is doing, and we don't know exactly how he developed this relationship, but he created a connection with the most powerful power around the Mediterranean. Which is interesting. Think about our days. Think about our days. What does it mean to be strong? When America is on your side, you feel strong. You feel strong, you create a special connection. In a certain way, I honestly feel that this pasuk is talking in a way about our days. When the most powerful person of the most powerful country in the world is on your side, they appreciate what you are doing, and we are going to discuss it in a second why it was so important. And he built a house in Yerushalayim. He built a house in Yerushalayim. Think about it. It's magnificent. And this is the first thing that the Tanakh said. What does it mean that God was with David? That the most powerful person politically is building a house in Yerushalayim. And therefore we have to look upon what happened in the last few months in a more biblical view. If you like Trump or not, it does not make a difference. But in a way, it reminds me the story about Hiram Melech Tzor, like the most powerful kingdom around, which having very strong ties with Israel. Now, I have to say, it was also part of interests. Israel provided them with oil, with many things, and the most important thing what they provided them, the Jewish cope. Yes, they had expertise in many, many things, but we know today that David and Shlomo later provided them with people to help them to run the economy. Apparently Jews always were good in financials, trading, all these kind of things. We know that the bracha for Zvulun was that actually V'yarketo al Tzidon. Tzidon is not far away from Tzor. And they were great traders. They apparently knew, as I said in the previous class, they were educated, they knew how to write, they knew how to calculate even from a very young age. And they helped Hiram Melech Tzor to develop his economy. Not only that, there was something very, very important that happened at this time. We know that at the time of David and Shlomo, a major cultural shift happened in the world. And this is the moving from the alphabet, which was not actually alphabet, but more like the language that was based on science, very, very much like the Japanese of today or the Chinese, to the alphabet, which is a huge change in communication. We don't think about it, but the alphabet was a major, major shift in the culture of the world and spreading of ideas, spreading of culture, because it's a little bit hard to teach people to read 30,000 different signs, or even 17,000. The Akkadian had this language that was based on 17,000 different signs. And the Jewish alphabet, and maybe it's not Jewish, we don't know exactly. I have my theory that it was in the time of Avraham Avinu that the Jewish people started to use this alphabet, because otherwise it's very hard to understand how Avraham managed to spread his ideas when he came from a different language, from a different area. But this was a real revolution, where you changed the science to phonetics. Because Aleph is Aleph. And it doesn't make any difference if it's, you want to express this word or another. When I hear then I will make and B and C, and we will create words. So from the need to learn 30,000 signs, or 17,000, or even few thousand, 26, anything between 22 to 30 letters, changed the whole game. People could learn quite quickly to learn, to read, to write, to communicate with other nations. And we do know that this alphabet was start to spread all over what is today Europe, North Africa, at this time, the time of David HaMelech. And I have a very strong reason to believe that at this time, Hiram enjoyed this culture and this education and maybe spread it out. That's a speculation. I'm not sure that I'm right. I read it in some of it in the Biblical Encyclopedia, which is quite a reliable source, I believe. And they say that indeed the reason of Hiram was a double reason. One, economically, the second one, culturally. He was apparently the one who spread this alphabet to other countries, and it's nice to believe that it's true. It will be nice to believe that.
Can you go back and explain a little bit more of what David's strategy is here? We've got 8, 9 psukim, and it's all over the map. A long time period. I'm not sure.
It was, okay, that's a very good comment. When Hiram actually built this house, from this you might guess that it happened immediately upon entering Jerusalem. Very hard to believe that, because I'll tell you a few facts about Hiram. Hiram, and it was the same Hiram, because the Tanakh say that he helped Shlomo because he loved David before him. If it happened indeed, the story here, in the beginning of the time of David, how many years David was in Jerusalem? 33 years. Then you have the years of Shlomo HaMelech. And 20 years later, actually the Tanakh said that Hiram still did business with Malchut Israel when Shlomo was not around. If to accept it, it means that Hiram was a king for about 80 years. The time of Shlomo, the time of David, and 20 years later. And many of the Chokrim find it very hard to believe that there was any king in the Tanakh that was indeed a king for about 80 years. It's not impossible, but it's a very hard thing to believe. And therefore, they suggest the following idea. The house to David was built actually quite towards the end of Malchut David in Jerusalem. It takes time until you develop this connection. It's not going to happen overnight. Why it's here? Because the purpose of this chapter is to just give us in one shot how David developed his kingdom, and it does not mean that he developed it overnight. But the stories about his children that we are going to see, the story about the house that he built, the story about the developing his political ties with other nations, this happened all over the time of David. But this perek want to give you in a concentrate way the achievements of David as the first king of Israel. So it might well be that you're right. It did not happen immediately after he took Yerushalayim. It took some few years. The Tanakh, for his reason, wants just to tell us what kind of achievement David achieved as a king. So it's a good comment, and indeed, I saw it somewhere that they raised this question.
I have a question.
Yes.
What about the Aramaic language? Is it before?
Which one?
Aramaic.
All the Semitic languages developed more or less at the same time. Aramaic was around, we know it from the Torah. We know that we have actually two words in the Torah which are in Aramaic, in the Torah itself, that were spoken between Yaakov and Lavan. You remember the words? When they depart from each other, they build a pile of stones. And the Torah said the following: Yaakov kara lo Gal'ed, which is in Hebrew, Velavan called it Yegar Sahaduta. Yegar is a pile, Sahaduta, testimony. Sahadei mean testimony. So it is the name in Aramaic of Gal'ed. So obviously the Aramaic words and Lavan Arami came from Aram. This was the Aramaic language. It's not exactly the Aramaic of the Talmud, let me tell you that. The Hebrew changed from the time of the Bible to the time of Chachamim. The Aramaic and every language change over time and shift from one phase to another. But this was a language for centuries. The biggest threat to the Aramaic language was ISIS. ISIS actually killed a huge number of people that were the last one to speak Aramaic. And still there are about 1 million people in the world, or 800,000 people in the world who are still speaking Aramaic. But soon it's going to be a dead language. The only place that you will hear Aramaic will be the yeshiva world, I guess, which is not the Aramaic of the old times. They say that if you remember, when the Pope visited Israel, Netanyahu said that JC spoke Hebrew, and he stopped him against all the protocols. He said no, he spoke Aramaic, which is true. At this time, the people spoke Aramaic. This was the language. This was the English of the day, because the Romans and the people that they brought from Syria and from Iraq spoke Aramaic, and this was the language of the Middle East at the time. But it's a dead language today. It's a dead language.
So the scrolls they found in the caves were in Aramaic, in Hebrew?
Many of them in Aramaic, absolutely. If you see the Ktubot, the addresses on the walls were Aramaic even at the time of the Nevi'im. Actually, Nikbat HaShiloach that we brought, the address on the wall over there, like what they wrote, the written words on the wall are in Aramaic, which was the language of the Elite, because Hebrew apparently was kept like Yiddish. It was the Yiddish of the day. You know, people spoke in Yiddish, and the Hebrew was for learning Torah, was for other things, not for a simple communication. And people used Aramaic. They said it's a dead language. It's a dead language. I do remember, I can tell you that, it's not part of this shir, that when I was in Orchaim, a group of Assyrian from Toronto, they came to ask us for some help to explain them how they can have a Sunday school and to reteach their children Aramaic. It was very sad, because it's important for them, and they don't know how to do it, because it's a dead language, and they heard that people manage like to take a dead language like Hebrew and to make it like a normal language, which is a miracle by itself, I must say. Who could believe it, like 150 years ago? So they wanted to hear how we did it, like, but basically it's gone. It's unfortunately it's gone. Yeah, empires, languages, cultures, sometimes are going down, and that's what happened. I just want to mention one thing, because today I had a spare time, and I wanted to expose something which I find very, very interesting. Who is the big father of David? He came from the tribe of Yehuda, obviously Yehuda, right. Actually, Yehuda was the father who had relations with Tamar, with all this strange story. And Peretz was born, and from Peretz was born David later. Right, as we say in Lecha Dodi, Ben Partzi. Ben Partzi means the son of Peretz, which is David, and later on the Melech HaMashiach. Now, you know, Yehuda had a very good friend, which mentions 3 times in Sefer Bereshit. Do you remember his name?
That's where he lived.
Yeah, very good, I'm impressed. So let's read the pasuk, you're right. ויהי בעת ההיא, after מכירת יוסף, וירד יהודה מאת אחיו. Yehuda is actually expelled from the family. Rashi said that the brothers, seeing what Yaakov is going through, they became upset with Yehuda because he could save them from selling Yosef. So he is leaving the family, Vayet ad Ish Adulami. He is going to Ish Adulami, a person who lives in Adulam, Ushmo Chira. Chira. Not Chiram, but Chira. Not very different. And then the whole story of Yehuda, he see a daughter of Ish Knani, Shmo Shua, and she had a son, Shmo'er, he died, Onan, he died, Sheila, he doesn't want to give him to her, and then the whole story with Tamar. But we see that Chira was a very close friend with Yehuda. And I'll tell you to what extent. And maybe it tells you something about friendship. Yehuda having an affair with a prostitute, at least that's what he thought, Kdeisha. And he promised her to send the price that they agreed upon later, and he sent Chira. So he tells him, you know what, do me a favor, give it to her. Now what did that mean? He had to tell him what happened. Which is not very commendable. It's not something so nice. You really, even to a friend, you don't tell him things like this. He told him, and not only that, he's doing everything as an agent. He tried to go, he tried to find her, he cannot find her. He goes back to Yehuda, and he says to him, you know what? Stop searching for her. Penny yelavuz. I'm afraid that they will mock us around. What Chira to mock him? This was a very close friendship. Everyone who knew Yehuda associated him with Chira. They were very, very close friends. And in a certain way, I think that the Tanakh here model this friendship between Yehuda, the great father of David, with Chira, to the friendship of David and Chiram. A very close friendship. Over there between two individuals, because Yehuda at the time is not a ruler, is not a king, but here the friendship became a friendship between the ruler of Israel and the non-Jew. And the Torah never wanted Am Israel to be isolated. It actually wanted to be recognized as a special nation among the nations. But then, when I started to read a little bit more about it, the Tanakh is telling us few things which are very interesting about Tzor, about Tyre. As I said before, Tyre of the time was what is today Manhattan to the world, like the center of the world, trading center, financial center, people come, people go out, a cultural center because of it. But we know that although Am Yisrael and Tzor had wonderful years together, at a certain point it worked against us. And the classic example is Achav. Achav, the wicked king of Israel, he married the daughter of a Baal who was the king of Tzor and Sidon. And as a result, they imported into Israel all the Avodah Zarah that happened in Sidon. In a place like this, there are wonderful things and there are things that keep over there. We don't want them by us. And they imported into Israel this kind of thing that ruin the culture of Israel. And then I just like scanned some of the psukim and I saw something very, very interesting. When the Navi said, because Tzor changed its colors and became actually a very bad influence on Am Yisrael, and over time even cooperated with other nations against Israel. This is years after the story with David and Shlomo. So for example, Yechezkel says 3 psukim, and listen to the sound of the psukim. I just found it today, which is very interesting. Hashem promised Tzor the following: Balahot etnech, I'm going to bring you to a state of balaha, of fear, of desolation. Ve'einech, you are going to disappear. Utevukshi, people will looking for you. Ve'lo timatz'i od le'olam. You are not going to be found. Once I will destroy it, it's going to be forever. Then another pasuk. Socharim ba'amim, all the traders of the world who used to visit Tzor, shamemu alaych. They are not going to come anymore to Tzor because Tzor is going to be desolated. Hayit ve'einecha dolam. And you are not going to be forever. It's going to be a final destruction. Another pasuk. Kol yoda'ich ba'amim. Everyone who knew you and he is going to see what happened to you will say, Hayit, you were, ve'einach adolam. Now, I told you one of the rules that I learned in learning Tanakh is that I said many, many times, at the time that you don't have YouTube and you don't have visual highlighters and all kind of things to draw your attention, lots of attention going to the phonetic, to the sound. What the word lo timatzi od leolam, ve'einech adolam, ve'einech adolam, what does it remind you? If you talk about Tzor and Hiram Melech Tzor, and that maybe Hiram Melech Tzor and David are modeling actually the friendship between Yehuda and Hira, to me it brings up the place of Hira. Adulami. What is Adulam? He came from Adulam. Hira came from Adulam, and the Nabi said that the relationship between Tzor and Am Yisrael, after they betrayed the Am Yisrael, are not going to rectify Adulam. Adulam, Adulam. I don't think it's just an accident. I do believe that the Tanakh is teaching us here something very, very important. The friendship between the Jews and non-Jews, especially between countries, can be a benefit adolam. Adolam. It can go a long way. And in a way, this Chira Adulami was a friend forever to Yehuda. In a way, all this episode with Chira, with Yehuda, brought the Melech HaMashiach, brought David to the world. But it's in the hands of nations how to continue this friendship. They can ruin it too. And we see it so many times. We see nations that support you in a certain point can turn their back against you in another opportunity. And the hope of the Nevi'im is that they will take this friendship and will make it last forever. No matter what, Yehuda here came to a very low point in his life. And nevertheless, Chira, the friend of Yehuda, continued to support him, to help him. What happened with Bnei Israel at the time of the first temple, once they hit a low point, Tzor betrayed them. Tzor turned their back against them. So the gift of relationship ad olam was messed up by Tzor itself. And for this, God destroyed them. If you don't understand the value of friendship in all kind of situations, then there is no point in giving you this gift of ad olam. And therefore, whenever I see even our friends, I believe that friendship with the Jewish people is a gift ad olam. Ad olam. And indeed, when the Torah described the first close relationship between non-Jews and Jews in their land, it's chira ad olami. It's ad olam. But you can lose it. You can lose it. We saw in our history nation that benefited from the Jews enormously, betrayed them. It's not something that comes and is guaranteed. It depends on the leaders, on sometimes the churches, sometimes upon the people to maintain this relationship. God gave this concept of friendship ad olam, but as I said, they can betray us. And unfortunately, it happened more than once in Jewish history.
You're positioning this that God told us to make these friendships.
I believe so.
But
I believe
when
that
you go back to when we're going to enter Eretz Israel, we were supposed to wipe out everything in Israel. You want to stay, but you're going to stay as slaves or get out. If you don't get out, I'll kill you. So I'm not sure I see the where you're.
Okay, just to make clear this point, we follow the Rambam, who suggests upon the Talmud that even the 7 nations, when Israel came, first thing that they did, that's how the Rambam said, was not like, okay guys, we are going to kill you all. They were offered peace treaty. They refused. And the arrest is the result of their refusal. And I would say in this regard, the Knisa of Bnei Israel to Eretz Israel is very much what happened in like 48. If the Arabs at the time would accept the UN decision, which was not good for the Jews obviously because they got like a fraction of what they have today, I think that they would prosper and the Middle East would prosper. You always have the right to say no. They say no, and now, 70 years later, they still cry for what? For they saying no. That's the way I see it. But I don't want to talk too much politics, but I would say that that's what happened at the time of Yoshua. When Yoshua came to the land, the Rambam said he sent people to the kings of Canaan and he said, listen, we are coming to the land, it's our land, but I am more than willing to sign contracts with you. They said no. That's it. According to the Rambam, it might be that even with Amalek, you are allowed to make all kind of treaties. The idea is that once you go to a war with Amalek, you are allowed to kill everyone. But as I said before, at least according to the Rambam, when the Torah said, "Ki tatzur el ir liilachem alea," it's talking even about milchemet mitzvah, like what happened in Eretz Israel. But they say, "No, if you come, we will kill you." So Bnei Israel killed them. I don't like to draw too many parallels between what the Tanakh is telling us and our days. It's not always the same, exactly the same. But you know what, it's striking to see how many things that happen in the Bible are just repeating themselves again over history. And I think that this is one of them. This is one of them. Okay, let's go ahead. So David is taking Yerushalayim, building a new capital, and we say this avoid any bad feeling from any, if he would take one of the cities that they already had, it will create tension between the tribes. So let's start all over, from the beginning, and from scratch, and that's it. So Vayeda David, after what happened with Hiram, David knew, Ki hechino Hashem lemelech al Israel. He saw it as a sign from God that indeed he became the king of Israel. Vechinise mamlachto. He raised, he exalted his kingdom. Ba'avur amo Israel. You see how David perceived it. He doesn't say, "I'm so great, and people are looking to sign all kinds of treaties with me." David, from the moment we met him, he's the person who see himself as the leader of Klal Israel, a servant of Klal Israel in a way, and therefore he translates this support of Hiram at this time as a sign that indeed Hashem supporting his nation and his job as the king of Israel, which is also very, very important. Vayikach David od pilagshim venashim. When you feel that you are the king, you want to base it, you want the descendants to continue it, and therefore the Tanakh is telling us that he took women. Vayivaldu od le David banim ubanot. He had many children, which gives you the feeling that the family established itself.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Why did he take concubines?
Everybody did.
That's what I was,
Where they lived there.
Well, if they were Jewish.
No
then
telling.
it's-
Well, first of all, we have to understand what does that mean. It was
I mean, Easter was part of it.
Did he have a restriction on how many wives he could have?
he had 18. David had 18.
That's all?
His son excelled, like
how many
he
you have?
expanded the number, but David HaMelech had 18 women.
So then anyone beyond that,
Eh,
like
Right, everyone above this one. And you have to understand again that, you know what, I'll tell you what I do
There's
believe.
only a limit to how many horses you can have, not how many
It
wives.
always bothered me, the story with this pilagshim, with concubines. And I think that the reason was very, very simple. And you will appreciate it upon what happened today. Listen, especially in a world where feminism was not heard, the power of men invited inappropriate relationship, especially with the people in power. And one of the ways to, if you wanted to have a servant in your house, on one hand, and not to cross the border, the pilegesh was kind of a good idea. You did not have full relationships with her because she was not your wife, but at the same time she got a status. She wasn't just she was not just a servant, someone with no name, with no status, with no role. She was, in a way, the family of the king. it's not the structure that we know today.
But it wasn't
It's
just
very
the king
true.
who had this, and like all the men did this, not just the
That's-
king.
I know, but that isn't an excuse.
The more
is it?
powerful you are, the more you have.
He was
They-
supposed
they
to be on a
support
different
themselves.
Madriga, no?
But this was going on at the time.
You see, even a president like who was it, Adams or Jackson? Who was it that he had a few servants and then like illegal child? This was a situation where it was very hard. That's my own belief. That it was just a way to regulate the tensions and the relations in the extended family of the king.
But
Because
the way ahead was Esther also, it was the same sort of thing.
listen, in the social structure we have today, it's almost impossible to understand it. And therefore, it's very hard even to get into the picture of what happened in the time of David and the other kings. I do believe that it had to do something with just regulating this kind of many women in the palace doing lots of work and the easy way that people can mess up with it. So everyone knows you don't mess up with her. In a way, she's a wife of David, although David himself did not live with her.
There's no two.
Yeah.
But you know, a second wife is called a Sarah.
I'm sorry?
A second wife is Sarah, right?
Sarah?
Sarah.
That's one,
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of times.
Sarah, right. Well, and they had many
I'm sure
children.
they all loved each other dearly.
Yeah.
No, but they may have liked it, the women may have liked it, and been happy because
So
they had a
you want to
bit
be a
more of a.
pelagic?
Oh, please.
I'm
sure they will.
As I said, it's a very different structure, and people, listen, today you have it still in some of the less developed countries, you
Have it in
still
the
have
White
it.
House, too.
Look at Rachel,
They
they
still
were
have-
happy with the, no.
You know, Stormy Daniels
And that
is
was
a
only
pelagic.
two.
That's different. No, they.
You know what they say, that they thought about like
That was a little bit of security, that's
Eh,
security.
really make the cherem of Rabbeinu Gershom of having only one wife, they wanted to stop it because it was only for 1,000 years. They came to the conclusion that only the salary of one wife is not enough for the family. So they thought about like maybe few.
Anyway, it just goes to show what a wonderful person David was. With all these wives and everything, he still had time to write psalms.
Okay.
They were the songs that there was a sorrow to women, I mean, it wasn't such a terrible
And he still
situation.
went after someone's wife who he sent out to.
You know what they say, that behind every great person there is
Are 18 wives.
And concubines.
there is a surprised wife. So I don't know who is a great woman behind David. If it was Abigail or it was Bathsheba or whoever it was. Many had the credit why David was so great, right? If you have 18 now, women, everyone says, oh, it's, of course, I'm the great woman behind him. So,
But the only mentions, it's interesting, the Torah, only mentions Bathsheba, not the guy, it doesn't mention.
oh, you are going to see many of them. Actually, first of all, we saw already like 6 before in Perek Gimel or something like this in Hebron, but now we have even more. ואלה שמות הילודים לו בירושלים, שמוע ושובע ונתנו שלמה. And it's interesting because we don't hear, אנחנו לא שומעים על שמוע ושובע ונתנו שלמה. This is a major issue that the Parshanim don't understand. We never heard these names of שמוע ושובע ונתנו שלמה. יבחר ואלישוע ונפק ויפיע ואלישמע ואלידע ואליפלת. Like many children. And you see here that Shlomo is mentioned the fourth one. And what happened to all the other 3 before him? When it comes later to crown the next king, we are talking about Adoniah, we talk about Avshalom, we know about Amnon, but we never hear about these people, Shamua v'Shova v'Natanu Shlomo. To the point that some people believe that this Shlomo is not the Shlomo that we are discussing later. But these names appear only here, and as I said before, the reason why they are mentioned is just to tell us that David became a real king. He is in Yerushalayim, he built his family in Yerushalayim, he had many children in Yerushalayim. It made impression on the people around. And what we are going to see next time is the Plishtim are fighting against David. The Plishtim who actually conducted the first war against Shaul, they are now going to conduct a war, actually 2 wars, against David. This is what we are going to see B'ezrat Hashem next time. Okay.
Good.
Shkoyach, thank you very much. I'm sorry again for the computer, but